Who wants the spring tour of the conservatory? Stick around with me and let's go through some of the plants. Okay, shall we begin? So behind me you might be able to notice the, what am I blocking? Spanish moss is doing really, really well so far. You can see as well the Anthurium, not Anthurium, Philodendron Heleniae, subspecies Heleniae. You might see here, if it's picking up on the, it is. This is a spent bloom and there is another bloom at the top. Don't worry, I will also take you to the canopy of my indoor jungle as well, so you can kind of see. And here you can see one of the oldest leaves again of the Philodendron Esmeraldense. And everybody that was worried about the browning tips or the browning kind of edges, this leaf has been like this for the last 7 months, I would say. Fine. And this is something to kind of showcase and maybe understand a bit more. A lot of the times with a lot of these plants, what will happen is they will sacrifice some of the oldest leaves. This leaf has probably been on this plant for about 3 or 4 years now. It has served its purpose and it is slowly retiring. Part of that is because of the watering that I did in the winter, before anybody kind of comments on that. But yes, I reduced watering in the winter for reasons that hopefully everybody should be aware of by now, which is to make sure that these plants, when they're not actively growing, do not kind of end up getting something like root rot. I do not want to lose this big plant. What does happen in those situations is that the plant will prioritize the top growth, which is its newest growth, which is what it should be prioritizing, not necessarily keeping the lowest leaves and the oldest leaves pristine. So that is the trade-off. Instead of me potentially losing the entire plant because of root rot, if I'm going to have to sacrifice some of the lowest leaves, so be it. They can be sacrificed. It is fine, because you'll see in a minute, the new growth is absolutely huge and completely fine. And I just took a yellowing leaf off from the Heleniae, subspecies Heleniae, because that was close to a cut that I did at the top there, because this plant was just getting a bit too big. This is one of the plants that I should have put on a moss pole. Keep in mind, the leaves have not got any smaller on this plant, but it is everywhere. It is everywhere. It is everywhere. It's a feral plant. It's one of my original feral plants, but it is absolutely everywhere. If I tilt you around a bit so you can kind of see, or maybe you can see if I kind of stand to the side here, this is everything else that's happening. So you might see here, this is the Philodendron splendid. Hopefully that's coming up. Yes, I think it is. On the screen, you'll see another leaf at the top. You can see an accidental rip that I did on my Philodendron esmeraldense there, which is beyond frustrating. Some of the leaves here of the Anthurium esmeraldense, the one that I'm shaking in the camera here, and the hot mess that is happening around the kind of corner there, because that's where I've got some grow lights. And let me pan you down so you can see my little corner here with the fan blowing, and also some grow lights and my little dolly trolley, as I call it, which has got all my little paraphernalia that I need in terms of taking care of the plants within this space, because plants are everywhere. Still need things to deal with plants. And by that I mean I've got things like foliar spray for the orchids on there. I've got a spray can for some of the orchids that I need to mist, and also things like some of the pest treatments for mealybugs, things like that. Plant ties. You need a space so you can put all those things, rather than it just being an entire jungle of just green, because otherwise it's just a mess. This is a mess at the best of times. You know it is. But yeah, I need a space where I can kind of have things on, basically. And you can see a slightly different angle here. You can see one of the newer leaves on the Philodendron esmeraldense here. And whilst I knock everything down, you can see the beginning parts here of the Heleniae, subspecies Heleniae. And right in the back there, you might notice, oops, right here, There is a luxuriance crossed with the radicans, one of the 3 plants that I got in the one pot that I was talking about. And for the people that have been asking how it's doing, also trigger warning for anybody with trypophobia, the begonia melanobulata, isn't it the prettiest thing in the world? And you can still see some of the older leaves are struggling, but it is slowly coming back. This plant always kind of throws a hissy fit around the changing of the seasons, but as soon as spring comes around and then summer kind of starts following it up, this will be fine. By the end of the summer, it will be completely back to normal. Thought I'd grab you a bit more handheld now. You can kind of see things there. Let me show you something else that is interesting, that is still doing relatively okay, actually. The Alocasia fried egg, as I've got a leaf on my head. The actual fried egg, the variegated Miscellaneous. And you can see I've got some pups. You can see some of the oldest leaves that are curling, and that's because I've got it very close to a grow light, but absolutely fine. Also, you might notice, can you see the gaps that are there? That is not solid soil. There's a lot of air gaps at the moment. Completely fine. Completely and utterly fine. Same thing goes around the same area. I've got my variegated Adansonii, the last remaining little bastion from a plant that I chopped up a while back, and it's got some decent variegation. This is relatively slow, but I'm okay with it being slow because the mother plant of this had gone almost entirely white, so I wanted to bring some green back into the plant. There you go, you can kind of see it there. And then there, you can kind of see in the background, I get it to focus, you can see the crocodile fern. And again, it's doing relatively well. I'm not complaining with that one. It is doing exceptionally well in terms of it growing on a mount. Definitely should have tried that years ago had I have known better. And I'll hopefully show you a bit better the luxurians with the radicans. There you go. You can kind of see the luxurians crossed with the radicans right there. And I think the easiest way of me doing this is actually showing you the shelves from above and then just going down every single one of the shelves. That probably give you the best kind of experience as to what is happening everywhere, basically. So let's climb up on a chair. And I'm going to try not to get blinded. But right here next to me, you can kind of see the Philodendron splendid, and there's another one at the back there. And for anybody that was worried about the Esmeraldens, 1, 2, 3, quite a few pristine leaves, and they're all relatively new leaves. So you can see where the plant is putting all of its energy. It's doing this, not taking care of the lower leaves. Hopefully that alleviates some worry that people had. And then right there in the back, and hopefully you should be able to see right there, is the Aglaonema pictum tricolor. And just so you've got an awareness, that's the top of the glass. That is how much light that plant is getting. Now moving you a bit more to the side of the same kind of shelf, and you can kind of see here, I'll bring it up, that's another one of the 3 radicans crossed with luxurians, or luxurians crossed with radicans. I can't remember which direction it goes. I'll put it on the screen. But this, by the way, was how the plant came with. That leaf was kind of chopped off already, but doing relatively well. Net pots. I've got back into my net pots, and I don't think I'm going to be moving away from them anytime, whilst I stumble over my words there. I'm not going to be moving around from net pots for a while, I think, anyway, at least. So many more kind of places for air to go into the growing media. Does it mean I'm having to water them a bit more frequently? Yes. Should I have done this in the winter rather than in the summer? Probably also yes, because I'm going to be watering these a lot more frequently now in the summer because they will be drying out. But the level of security this gives me for winter, unmatched. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about it. And this is still in a very airy Anthurium soil mix from Soil Ninja, but these, by the way, and some of the other ones you'll see in a bit, I found them on Amazon. I can link them down below if you want on the description. I don't know whether, because I know a lot of people watch me that are not based in the UK, but hopefully there'll be an equivalent match in your Amazon if you wanted to get them, but they weren't as expensive as I remember them. They're still not the cheapest, but they weren't as expensive as I remember them. And then on the side here, you should be able to see right here, whilst I'm kind of showing you one of the leaves, so you can see one of them here. This is the Heterocraspidon, the Philodendron Heterocraspidon. And this is, the Pinnatylobum affinity. Yeah, Pinnatylobum affinity. This one's doing better. This one's usually behind me, and some people worried about the crispiness and the yellowness that's happening. These are the new leaves. It's fine. It's fine. It goes through, this is a plant that I have noticed has always stressed out during the winter. Is it the reduced light hours? I think the reality with this space is the cold, because I let it drop down a bit more than the average person probably would be comfortable with. Years back, I did that because I had cooler plants that needed cooler temperatures, so stuff from like the higher elevations. I've got less of those at this particular moment in time, so in theory, I could bump up the heat in the winter. Energy is so expensive at the moment, and this is predominantly, yes, there is a radiator at the back of this specific plant shelf here that feeds off the central heating of the house, but that's not like, in the nicest possible way. I'm not a very, very old person that needs the heating to be on all of the time in the house, and I couldn't afford that anyway. So that's not running all the time. I need to supplement with an electric heater in here, and that still costs a fortune to run even at the lower temperatures. So it's not having to raise the temperature quite so much in the winter to go from like say 10 to 12 degrees that it might drop here naturally to 15, 16, 17 degrees Celsius. It's still using up a lot of energy. If I was trying to bring this up to 20, 21, 22, 24, 25 Celsius, my energy bill would be through the roof. And unfortunately, even though I've got solar panels, I do not live in a country where in the winter there is an awful lot of light. So that is a problem basically. So it's one of those things. And let me shift you around a bit more again so you can see what's behind here, because the Melanochrysis is doing well. The Melanochrysum, for the people that don't know, but the Melanochrysis is doing well. And there you go. You can kind of see there, that is a Melanochrysum leaf. There's another one here, a very, very large one here. You can see some of the other leaves. So the Esmeraldense is taking over. And you can see again, older leaves. There's a slight crisping that's happening there. This side doesn't have it. It is what it is, basically. And also keep in mind, I also had a grow light blasting these lights in the winter, these leaves in the winter, just to give them a bit of extra light. Possibly some of that caused this as well, but it's fine. What else is here that you might want to see? The Billietier, the Philodendron Billietier is right there. Let me see if I can bring its newest leaf so you can kind of see it right there. Ta-da! That is the Billietier leaf. Whilst I've got other leaves in front of it. This is the problem with me trying to film, like, the chaoticness that is myself, but also the chaoticness that is my jungle. This is the Philodendron Billietier, one of its newest leaves. And obviously that specific philodendron isn't one that does an awful lot in the winter. So that is the newest leaf from last summer. So there will be more coming on that plant very soon. Now moving on to the other side of the plant shelf. So kind of right here where I've got my hand and you can't see it is where I usually film, and we're kind of panning around the room that way. So always and forever in my houseplant collection, I spoke about this in a recent video, my Ficus elastica Taniki, if I'm not mistaken, for this one. And you know, it's not one of my videos recently if I don't bring this up to show you the progress. Mounted blue star fern. I love somebody in the comments like a good few weeks back, and they're just like, thank you for like always waving the blue star fern around in our faces. I might try to mount ours and like try it again basically. So yay! More people mounting epiphytic ferns. Make sure that it's an epiphytic fern. This one is, but make sure it's an epiphytic fern for your own sanity. Like, I'm sure you could theoretically mount a non-epiphytic fern, but the level of watering that you're probably going to do there is going to be obscene. But epiphytic ferns, Fine. The slight floppiness of the leaves down here below is these were its original leaves when I first got it. And you can see here, and I can show you the back, you can see the fronds that are coming in. So much growth on this plant. And I've got that little kind of rabbit foot thing that happens with these ferns at the top. So this is a very, very happy looking fern. Another plant that you haven't seen on my channel for a while, mainly because it has struggled the mostest, is, and I'll see about bringing it up so you can maybe see it without me snapping it. This is the last remaining leaf, and you can see some of the damage there from the slugs. This is the last remaining Anthurium lancia. Whilst I drop things down below. And it's okay. Like, I'm sure there is more growth. There is plenty of roots that are happening in the semi-hydro. I don't know whether or not I'm going to hopefully transition that into some soil soon, but we shall see with that one. Very, very back, I don't know whether or not you're going to be able to see it, right there. Maybe it's behind too many other leaves. That is the oldest leaf of the Queen Anthurium, which you can't even see how big I'm making my hands, but you'll see a new one. This is the oldest leaf of the Traversia Burkii. And it always does this. It's watering day today, and it's just such an expressive plant because you can see how it's flopped down, and some of the taller leaves at the top are a bit more out, and that's the way that it shows me that it needs some water. It's a day that needs watering, but this is a plant that goes from once every 2 weeks in the winter to, by the time it starts getting as warm as it is now, is once every 3 days in terms of watering, and even then it's still throwing a hissy fit. So a very, very, very thirsty plant, having to move grow lights around as well so that they're not in the shot. So this is the oldest leaf, and I'm letting it kind of die off. It's yellowing off. It's already just got a brand spanking new leaf of the Anthurium bullatus, I think this one is. I got it as a bullatus. I don't think it was a bullatus. I'll put the name at the top because I can never remember the name of this. This is one of the leaves. There you go. You can kind of see the shape of the leaf as it's kind of like sunsetting itself. It is a very, very, very cool. And the newest leaf is even bigger. I'll show you when we go higher on this one. Right here is the Terrafolium. God, that took me a moment. It's been a long day already. I've already filmed in the allotment in the garden. I'm now filming in here, and I need to do the filming around the house in just a second because you're getting grand tour for spring. But the Terrafolium, still one of my favorites, if not, and I'll stick to this, my favorite Anthurium. Never really given me any grief. Never, ever, ever given me any grief. Never, ever, ever. But right, let me pick you up and show you things a bit more rather than just being on a tripod. It's knackering for my hand because it's really quite heavy holding it all the time, but it gives you some better shots. So let me pick you up and show you around a bit more here. Right. So right in the back there, you might be able to see right there, that leaf there is a Queen Anthurium leaf. So that's the newest one that's happened just in the last month or so, basically. And you can kind of see here is the Philodendron, this leaf here, and the leaves behind it is the Philodendron Sharonii. This, however, is the Philodendron Esmeralda spirit. So this is the Esmeraldense hybridized with the Spiritus Sancti. By the way, for the people that have been questioning, my Spiritus Sancti has long expired. That did not survive in my care. I don't know if I'm going to be trying that anytime soon as well, because this is a very wide growing plant, and I don't know if I want to have another one of those in this space. Maybe in the next house, if I've got a bit more space and I can dedicate some room for them, fine. But also, this is an okay grower in terms of speed. The Spiritus Sancti, wow, was it slow. Wow, was it slow. This is obviously somewhere between, it's not as fast as the Esmeraldense, the Philodendron Esmeraldense, but it is a damn sight faster than the Spiritus Sancti. I do not have the time nor the patience for a plant that is that underwhelming for so long until it gets really mature, and then it's quite an impressive statement plant. I would much rather have this in my collection any day of the week. And as I was commenting about the newest leaf of that Anthurium that you saw the yellowing, this leaf here is the one that I was talking about. You can kind of see quite how large that is there. Now, if I bring you further down, you might see right here behind me, this is the Anthurium opulterianum. So if I'm not mistaken, this was named after Enid at NSC Tropicals, because I think that's her last name, if I'm not mistaken. Anything else that's of interest here? Obviously, you can see all of the, again, oldest leaves. These leaves have probably been on the plant for about 5 odd years now. Same with this one. This is very, very, you can tell by the size of this one, it's very, very small in relation to how long the rest of the leaves are. So they're being sunsetted. You can see the opulterianum has got a new little leaf that is happening right there, as I try not to fall down. And then you can see there the Paleonia repens variegated, and that's how close it is to a grow light. You can see where the grow light is. This is loving life, absolutely loving life. And then, because I know that there's always fans of this, especially people that have been moving for a while, look, it's the Begonia seismorii. This is Chewbacca 2.0. Wookie. I still need to choose the name. Apologies for everybody that suggested names. I will come up with a name from the list that you provided for me, I promise. I'll even try and put it up at the top of this video so you can kind of see it on the comments. And then I've got my little Anthurium corner right here. This is one of my propagates, and I'll show you. This was propagated from the plant that was sold to me as a metallicum, but it wasn't, and we still don't know what it is. Thank you for the person who saw one that's probably that in Kew Gardens, so I need to go and see if I can find a label for that one. Very, very cool, and this is one of the few seedlings that have survived, and it's actually getting to a decent size now, so I'm happy with that. And then, in some exciting news, oops, so try not to break everything. Guess who's back? Back again. One of the forgetii that I thought I'd killed. Because you know when you pick something out, because maybe it's just me, because I don't label things in my propagation box. This was a stump of something. I put it in, and when it was early days, I'm just like, it's some form of an Anthurium. I can tell that. I don't know what it is. And it's only when I got this leaf, and I'm just like, oh, it's a forgetii. It's a forgetii. Okay. So this one's doing okay. Put it in a net pot again, because again, I find that forgetii's roots are really not forgiving. They're really, really not forgiving of too much moisture. So this one's okay at the moment. My Velenoarum is in there as well. I've also got another hybrid of the Luxurians here. Let me see if I can pick it up. And this is a hybrid of Luxurians crossed with a Magnificum that you can kind of see right there. And again, this was a stump. It had gone down to a stump. You can see the oldest leaf has got a bit of water damage at the side. But again, part of the reason why I moved everything into net pots. Okay, shall we move on to the next section so you can see what's happening behind me? And we've got a grow light here that I can't move quite easily at the moment, but if I pan you that way and up, ta-da! Newest leaf from the Anthurium veitchii, and this is still very much hardening off, so this is going to take a while before it gets much bigger, basically. More of the Philodendron Esmeralda spirit. And right here, let me see if I can bring you down. Ta-da! That is the newest leaf that is still hardening off of the Anthurium actual metallicum. And for the person from the London plant spot with this one, it's doing well. Another one that's in a net pot at the moment, same thing goes, and I'll bring it up so you can kind of see it, because I've mentioned it on quite a few of my other videos. The Piper rubesioides. This is absolutely stinking huge. You can kind of see what the newest leaves look like right there. Very, very cool plant. And kind of coming back into action. Pretty much most of the plants now are coming back into their growing season. So there is a lot going on, even though it's not fully settled yet, basically. So behind here is a variegated Rhaphidophora that I can never remember the name of. Then I've also got a larger version of this plant there, and you can see it's going to lose some of its lowest leaves, so that's fine. Those are the oldest leaves. This is still doing well. The roots are really healthy in here, and it's slowly starting to attach to the moss pole. This is a plant that's taken a while to attach, so looking forward to that settling in a bit more. And behind there as well, you can kind of see this was the fern that was kind of crawling very spider-like. I'm trying to think of what the name is. Microgramma vaccinifolia. And I'm finally getting some new leaves in my own care. And I've done what everybody else is saying, and I was kind of like attached it to itself rather than hanging, because it does need to latch onto something before the new leaves come through. But I've got some new leaves, which is very, very exciting. Again, a mounted fern. The other thing that I did differently this year is, so and you can see some of the yellowing that's happening here, it's mainly because I chopped this up and moved this very recently, but you can kind of see at the very top. This was the Philodendron, something dragon, I can never remember. I'll put it at the top of the name of the screen. But this is one that I got as a rescue box from the Rare Plant Shop and Kaylee Ellen back in the day. This was huge, absolutely huge. The leaves were 4 to 5 times size this, and I have got it. Some of it is water propagating, but I needed this to be diminished back down to a much more manageable size. So fine with this, because these are some of the oldest leaves, and you can see the top leaves are absolutely fine. This is going to take a while to size up again, but that's fine. I'm okay to do this hard chops on some of these plants in order for them to get going again, because this was taking over my entire space and shading too many things. And on this side, again, ignore the grow light because I've only got so many spaces that I can move it to. But this is my Philodendron Jose Bueno. It's doing really well. This was a succulent that I can never remember. I'll put the name. It's something Senecio something that I got as a bit of a plant swap with Jane Perrone, which I think Jane has restarted her podcast, or at least she's done an episode or two on the new podcast again. I'm so happy to see On the Ledge podcast back out into the wonderful worlds that is the podcasting world. So yes, that's there as well. You might be able to see if I pan you down right there. You can see some of the variegated burley marks, Philodendron. And then if I swivel you around, you can kind of see what's usually behind the camera. So here is the Syngonium chiapense. That is the one of the grow gang grow lights. The other one is the one that you can kind of see that's been behind me this whole time. We've got the Piper sarmentosum down here. I've also moved, and I can pan you down. I've also moved my Monstera esqueleto, move the radiator out of the way. Monstera esqueleto down there as well. And you can see some of the water propagation of the Philodendron that I was telling you there before. My papimilanum, I can never pronounce that damn Anthurium's name, is down there as well. It's doing relatively well. Some orchids here. Monstera Peru at the top there. And right at the top there, we've got the Philodendron, what was the Philodendron goldii, and it's been reclassified as the Thermatophyllum sprucianum, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which is this wonderful plant here. Right at the top here, you can kind of see the Philodendron patriciae. Love this plant. This, when I go to a better space, is going to have a bit more of a spotlight for itself, because unfortunately it's not getting as much of the love as it probably should up there. And right behind it is another orchid as well. I think that's everything from here. Let me shift you around again. Okay, this is my slightly reverted, well, not slightly reverted, it's still got some white on this leaf as well, and further down as well you'll see how much this Monstera albo has grown. But here is where I have the Platycerium, the I'll put it at the top there. This is not the Platycerium superbum. Superbum is up that way. I know it's called superbum for anybody that says this. I prefer to call it superbum. But this one's doing relatively well. Anybody that was there at the workshop last year? How is yours doing? I know a few of you kind of updated me on this, but how if you are watching this and you were there last year when we were doing the workshop, how is yours growing? This was the here's one I made earlier, one that I had when I was doing the workshop. Let me know how yours is doing. It's doing okay. I'm surprised. And then behind it here, this is, I'm trying to see where that one's coming from. This might be, is it? This is a Philodendron palaraense, and there is a Philodendron holtonianum that we'll see in just a second when I pan you a bit more that way. There is, where is it? So this is, again, some of the crispiness because it's getting too much light. Philodendron tenue. I think, let me shift you that way. Okay, and you can see quite how much this monstera that I was talking about has actually grown, because it's growing all the way from the bottom down there and it's come and wrapped itself around here. I don't mind because it's actually giving some of these plants a bit more shade, even though I'm having to put a bit of grow lights around it. Somewhere between here, you'll see this is the Anthurium cupulispathum, if you can see that one there. This is the, well, let me shift you up so you can see that. This is the Anthurium peltigerum. Getting blasted by the light is the Philodendron lionamii at the top. Superbum is there. And you can see this is a Macgravia as well here. Anthurium pendens here, which is another kind of long strappy leaf Anthurium. Let me pan you down again. Frederiksdalii is down here, and more of the palaraense, the kind of T-shaped leaves. And these leaves, which are a bit thinner and T-shaped, these are the holtonianum. So this is the actual Tesla plant. I'm trying to think what else I'll show you at the top again there. You can see some of the pinkiness that is happening up there. That is the Begonia brevirumosa subspecies exotica. And you can see a few more of the leaves. And right at the top there, you might notice possibly it's the rain point, the automated watering system, which will water my orchids. And let me show you behind me. Right at the top there, you can see that wall right at the top there is where I have all of my anthuriums that are mounted. And that is where the automated watering system is. And I think that is a quick and dirty tour of the conservatory for now. As I said, there's going to be more growth that I'll talk about in the summer edition of this. So, what did everybody think? Did you enjoy it? There's been a lot of growth that's been happening in these kind of early few weeks of spring. I am beyond happy with how things are going. Hopefully you've seen some of the plants that some of you might have been worried about doing a lot better. Mainly because you can't see them because they tend to be above me when I'm filming. But yes, let me know if anything surprised you. Did I miss any of your favorites? There will be another one coming up in the summer as well, but I thought I'd treat you all to kind of early growth that is happening now, kind of as we're coming towards the end of April and just kind of the heading towards the latter parts of spring, also before it gets ridiculously hot in here. But yes, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon, and I truly, truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.